this Tech Talk session, please do make sure that you do put in your chats inside the chat box as well, which we will cover at the end as our Q&A session takes place. So I'd like to first introduce Kieran Eaglestone, who is the Assistant Head of Innovation and Learning Tech at the British School of Jakarta. Hi, Kieran, how are you?
Hi, I'm very well, thank you. And well done for getting my job title fully correct.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
You should be very proud. I actually did not look at any script whatsoever. I managed to remember it. So, so that's points for me. And I just maybe like to take a moment to introduce to everybody exactly what you do on a daily basis and what is kind of, your involvement in the area of internet safety, and just so everybody kind of knows who you are and why you are here today.
Okay, yeah, sure. So I'm a teacher by training. I've worked in classrooms across primary schools and secondary schools. And I've always been interested in the use of technology from my first role, where I was basically the only one in the school who was keen to turn the computer on. And ever since then, the responsibility of technology has kind of fallen on my shoulders. And I really enjoy it. It's a fast moving, ever changing area of education. And I find it really invigorating to work in that area. In terms of my role in the school here, so we're a fully sort of kindergarten through to year 13 school, and we have a primary school and a secondary school, or elementary and high. And I work across both schools, so I'm in quite a unique position. There aren't many people who get to work across both schools, and I'm leading innovation and technology in terms of making sure that we have all the right infrastructure in place, but also as things are changing all the time, it's a big part of my role is to make sure that our teachers are up to date, that they are using the platforms that we use and the technology that we have effectively, that I support those who are innovating and amplify their voices, and also the students as well. So, the most innovative people in our community often are the students, and they're the ones who are pushing the boundaries, and it's my job to support them, to make sure that they are scaffolded in their explorations with technology, and that we have all those things in place that will help them to learn and prepare for what they need to do in the future. I think I've probably spoken enough about that, but that's a general overview of what I do.
Sounds like you have your hands full, and especially with the pandemic. I think you were probably the go-to person, I believe, at the institution. And I think it's also really important to understand that e-learning plays a really essential role in continuing the growth of our students, or just everyone and individuals around the world as well. Thank you, Kieran. Really lovely to meet you. And we have another expert who joined us today, and she is Natalia, who is a trainer and campaign specialist from YCAP Foundation. Hi, Nandia.
Hi, Aki. Hi.
Hi. Oh my God, I love that you're so cheerful. It is a Thursday, almost a weekend. So you're a good reminder. Your smile is a reminder to us. So thank you for being here today and taking part. And it's such a pleasure to meet you here. Perhaps you just want to introduce yourself to everyone that is here today, and kind of what is your role and how are you involved in the area of internet safety and cyber hygiene?
Okay. I will reintroduce myself. Hi, everyone. My name is Nandia from YCAP Foundation. In YCAP Foundation, I'm a content writer, I'm a trainer, and also a campaign specialist for YCAP Foundation and Do Something Indonesia, which is under YCAP Foundation. And before joining YCAP Foundation, I have a few years of experience in teaching children from the age of kindergarten to high school about STEM. And so now I'm working with YCAP Foundation. I want to bring impacts, I want to create a bigger ripple into the Indonesian youth, which is why I'm here with you guys to share about digital citizenship and all the things behind it and how to navigate online safely. Something like that.
Thank you so much. So you do a lot on training others on the area of internet safety. And I think that's something we will be covering a lot today. So I hope that if any one of you has any questions, please do put it on the chat box. We do have already people submitting some questions prior to this, so I'm really, really excited. Perhaps I'll come in and also introduce myself a little bit more and why I'm relevant to this particular session. So as the head of the UK Indonesia Tech Hub, I actually am doing a lot of programs here in Indonesia to support the UK-Indonesia ecosystem on the digital sector. And so there is a role in focusing on internet hygiene and, of course, the safety of online activities. And a lot of our programs actually works on the increasing of digital literacy and also making sure that vulnerable groups around Indonesia also understand that it is important to know even the very basics of internet safety, like transferring online, buying things on your favorite marketplace, social media, for example. So I think that's something we will be looking at today. And so I would like to just invite both of you. Maybe I'll start with Karen, especially with the pandemic being a huge role in getting everyone to stay home and doing work online and going to school online. What are some of the concerns, Karen, when you found that everyone had to start working and going to school offline, online from home? Perhaps you can share some challenges or fears that you had in terms of online activities, data breaches that you might have come across or feared would come across during your work as well. Kieran, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here for sure. Okay, so when the pandemic happened, I mean, we were a little bit lucky in that other peers of mine in other schools around Asia had already experienced going online. So we had a little bit of a heads up. And so we were able to plan what would happen if the school had to close the campus. And the challenges there, mainly, we were focusing on how do we continue a high quality education seamlessly from being in school to everybody being at home. And so we were lucky. We had a lot of infrastructure in place. We had devices in place, and we had a degree of understanding about how to use it altogether. We had classes practicing online lessons while they were in school. And so we were able to skill up our community quite quickly. It was still a very steep learning curve. And of course, when you're taking a device home and you're having a lesson from home, suddenly the teacher is in everybody's living room. And so we had to do some reassurance with our staff, because you suddenly have a gallery of all the family. All the parents can see what you're doing every day. And so there's quite a lot of reassurance needed there, because they felt quite intimidated by that. They didn't need to be, because they are brilliant teachers and what they do is amazing. But we had to reassure with that. And also some of the technology was a little bit more in its infancy than it is right now. So we were using Google Meets, and they were a lot more basic than they are now. And one of the things that's happened from the pandemic is this massive development that's been needed from the sector in terms of getting tools up to speed with what they're needed for. In terms of having devices in the children's hands, we've always had devices in the children's hands for many years now. So they were always one-to-one. So our students are used to having their own device. We have already sort of scaffolded how to use it appropriately. Suddenly when they're online and they realize they can chat to the whole class and send emojis and everybody gets them and you get a whole stream of emojis, you have sort of small disruptors like that. But in the main, our students understood the responsibility of being online and how to use their device properly. So we were quite lucky in that regard. Was there anything else? Your question was long and I've forgotten to.
Oh, sorry. No, I think that was very, very insightful, actually, because it gives us an idea of how much consideration that is to take place, not only the system itself, but also the environment that each individual is in as well, and the exposure that we have online, right? Sometimes we're not aware how wide a camera can view your background. So backgrounds are very important. Virtual backgrounds are very important. Speaking of emojis and just interaction, social media has been a super hyper platform that's been used to communicate with everybody in terms of updates and things like that. Nandia, this is something I really wanted to ask you. I'm sure you've done a lot of training and campaigning, especially of how to use social media safely, which I'm sure British School Jakarta might also play a role in making sure the students are actively using social media safely. Nandi, do you want to come in here and just talk a little bit about, the things that, top 5 things perhaps that we should be aware of when we're being active online as well?
5 top things that I would like to highlight is one, when you're online, you have to take your passwords very seriously to keep yourself safe. Just like, don't use the ABC 1, 2, 3 kind of password, but like something that is more intricate. And then the second one is when you are online, you have to invest your time as well. Like for instance, like what I do now, I try to limit myself from watching just dancing YouTube videos, but I'm more into like, I learn new languages. So yeah, that's what I said about investing your time by doing some things. And then the third one that we need to do most likely often is always use a virtual private network, a VPN, while browsing the internet, because you might get your data leaked somewhere, and that's very important. The fourth one is never ever say yes when some website pops up, like, do you want to download this for this? So yeah, don't download anything from a website or some providers that you don't know, or even like WhatsApp links. Never ever download them. And last but not least is be careful what you post. This is the most important one that we're going to talk about today, the 5th one.
Be careful what you post. Okay, so I'm going to give that space to you in a little bit, but I want to go back to Karen and understand a little bit about how perhaps you are helping to manage social media or sharing information to the students, or just anyone basically that you are surrounded with on social media. Maybe you can share a little bit about that, Karen.
Yeah, so this is something we've thought about for a while, of course, and we do have guidance on social media. It's structured around the different groups of people in our community. So we have guidance for students, and we have guidance for the staff, and they're the main 2 groups. And of course, it's a lot about common sense and just having a lot of common sense and thinking before you're acting, which I think is something there that Nandi was referring to. Be careful what you post. But also there are child protection concerns that we have to be careful with social media as well. And in a community like ours, which is quite a well-connected community, we are teachers, and a lot of our teachers have children who come to this school, and they are friends with their friends, and the parents have to go to, parties and play dates, and all of that world moves online. And then we've got teachers who are friends with parents on social media, and then, when rumors start flying around and things like that. So as a professional, you have to sort of take a little bit of a step back from that and be just really aware of where the boundaries are between your professional life and your online life. But then, of course, the older students are very active on social media anyway. They have good relationships with our teachers, and a lot of them, when they leave our school, they want to stay connected. And of course, the way everyone stays connected these days is on social media. So some of our teachers in high school get requests from students, to be friends on social media and things like that. So we just have to be really clear about those things as well. And then the sort of flip side of that, of course, is all the positive things that social media can bring to a student's experience, and how empowering it can be as well. And maybe we can talk a bit more about that later, but there's definitely, look, these are the ways we can use social media, and not just a whole list of things you can't do.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I think it's really important to be able to establish boundaries, especially when you're a professional outside and how you want to be portrayed on social media. But there's also that sort of like free will, free speech of like, I should be who I should be online, right? But there's also that awkwardness when you, at least I guess when you're in a working place. I don't know everybody here who's online who are friends with their colleagues and their bosses. I always find that a little bit awkward, and I always find myself hide story or, close friends and things like that. So yeah, there should be some boundaries. And of course, one should be able to establish themselves of how they want to be online. Thank you for that, Kieran. Now I want to go back to Nandia to give some time for the virtual floor for her to share about posting and how important it is to be self-aware of what you post. And then we're going to go back to Kieran to talk about how posting and activities on social media can be empowering as well. So Nadia, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Oki. Thank you, Kieran. Okay. Now, I will start with digital citizenship, what we're going to talk about today. It's like, for example, we live in Jakarta or maybe British school Jakarta in Bintaro or Tangerang Selatan. We live in Jakarta, that makes us a Jakarta citizen. So the same goes for digital world, and the digital world have citizens as well. And the phrase will be digital citizen. This term goes hand in hand with digital citizenship, which is a set of best practices that describe how a person can navigate safely, ethically, and appropriately in the World Wide Web. And this includes efficacy. A digital citizen who adheres to best practices is able to use the internet effectively for whatever lawful purposes without compromising their security and that of others. And as we glide in the digital world, being a digital citizen, we will have digital identity. What is digital identity actually? It's more like, for instance, me, Nandia, I have Instagram, and then I post the cute dog pictures. And then I also post a screenshot of a music platform that I listen to BTS, K-pop. And then I also sometimes share movie reviews about Korean dramas that I follow. That creates a digital identity that I love dogs, I enjoy K-pop, and I'm also to die for K-drama that are ongoing, something like that. That creates our digital identity. And all those things that creates our digital identity online will leave digital footprints, which is a data that is quite impossible to erase in the internet world. What is a digital footprint? Digital footprint is the unseen record of someone's activity online, including the websites you visit, the files, and the apps that you download. Sometimes the footprint exists in a passive form or active form. The passive form is like when you click enter on the website, that website records user's IP address, which includes information about how long you spend on the site and what pages that you visited. Or active form is when you log into a website. For instance, you log into Instagram and make changes to your profile or content. That is an active form of digital footprint. Yeah, pretty much that's it about digital citizenship. And to connect what Oki just said and to connect what Kieran was saying about, freedom of speech online and how to connect respectfully online, it's one of the things that is called a golden rule of the internet. Is when you engage with others online, when you want to communicate with people online, you engage the way you want to be treated. You treat them the way you want to be treated. And that brings us to netiquette. Just as proper table manners, like a part of a dining with a group, netiquette is also a part of digital citizenship. But unfortunately, many members of the online community don't have proper table manners. However, children now are digital natives from a very young age, and that's why it's our duty, teachers, educators, trainers, and parents, we need to well equip ourselves and influence them positively to glide safely in the online world. Back to you, Aki.
Thank you so much, Nadia. I think that was really useful, especially about digital identity. I think a lot of people are like, well, that's just my profile. Okay, but do you know how many profiles? So when you're talking about digital identity, what you mentioned before, it could be passive or an active form. So passive could be something you posted and you deleted, but it's still in the cloud up there somewhere, right? And then active is when you're visibly there. And then these are basically records of your postings. So a tweet that maybe you talked about, a personal opinion about a political situation, for example, 10 years ago, will still be there on your tweet, right? So that's really scary. I do have a few questions here, but I'd like to also give the chance to Kieran and go back to Kieran just a little bit about empowering through social media posting or just social media platform as a whole. Kieran, you want to come in here?
Yeah, sure. There's so many different little directions we could go here. Yeah, digital footprint. I also like the phrase digital tattoo, because that's a lot harder to remove than a footprint. It doesn't get washed away by the sea. But aside from that, when we're talking about empowering students with the use of social media, I think there's just in humans in general, there's always this inclination to take much more notice of what creates fear in us. So we always take a lot of notice of things that we see are dangerous. It's like in the news, it's always bad news. When it's about something new, it's always the dangers. And we overemphasize the dangers. And this has served us really well in the past when we were, in the forest or on the plains. If there was a danger and we took notice of it, we were much more likely to survive. Whereas if there was an opportunity, something positive, and we didn't take it, we may still survive. And so that's why fear took such a stranglehold on our sort of psyche. And I think with things that we don't necessarily always understand very well, the initial reaction is fear. So I think a lot of our role is to sort of allay those fears in terms of speaking with our parents and with our teachers, because they haven't grown up in this world. And so they do have these fears. And of course, the stories that are in the headlines about all the terrible things that happen occasionally grab our attention. We miss all the amazing things that are happening. So yes, we're trying to amplify the amazing things that are happening. Our students do a lot of service through CAS or Services Action, and they are self-organizing themselves into groups, and they automatically, without thinking about it, they want to have a social media presence so they can amplify their voice, whether they are collecting sanitary products to give to ladies and women who don't have them, or whether they're trying to collect in clothes so they can remake them and restyle them and pass them on to others. We have lots of projects like that. And the first thing they want to do is to create a platform in social media where they can share their ideas, where they can connect with people who can help them, and where they can have the biggest impact. And I think that's really important that we amplify that part of social media, and that's what we aim to support. And we even have the older ones who have been using social media for a little bit longer, and we've scaffolded, and they've got some expertise to mentor the younger groups who want to, but we're not quite ready to give them free rein just yet. So I hope that gives you an idea of our approach. Yeah. And using social media.
Thank you. It's a first, actually. I came from an international school background as well. In those days, we only had Napster. Napster was way long before that. Friendster, MySpace, and I did get into trouble for posting something, and I was considered bullying. So that didn't really look really good on my digital identity. But it was not bullying. I was very well justified. But things like that, right? You never really can control. Sometimes when things go online, they stay online, right, Nandia? So Nandia, I want to go back to you as well. As Kieran and Nandia mentioned earlier, our first kind of topic right now is about digital identity. And I think this is something that people tend to forget because we live in the real world, plus we live in our posting life as well. And to differentiate that sometimes is easy, sometimes it's not easy, right? But I want to go back to Nandia and ask about how can we manage our digital identity better, especially if we've had some pretty, indecent accidents of posting some stupid stuff, for example, or unnecessary things that we feel like, oh, we should be able to remove that. How do you think that we, all of us here today, can manage our digital identity better?
I guess it all comes back to what Kieran said. It's about common sense as well, like what to post, what not to post. But sometimes we have to, before we post something, we need to step back and think whether what we post or what we say, is it beneficial for the people who wants to listen to it? Is it going to hurt someone, or is it going to hurt your reputation maybe in the future? You have to step back and think before you share. something like
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
whatever you post online, I mean, like this, like what you said, something that you say about political views on your tweet, it will stay there forever. What you say right now, maybe you can just like try to justify it, try to say like, oh, this is my maybe 20-year-old self, I was young, I was reckless, something like that. Because what you say online, it will stay there no matter how hard you try to like delete it. Maybe from the platform it's gone, but you won't know whether your followers have screenshot it or something like that. That's why you have to really make sure that you know and you understand what kind of things that you post and what kind of audience that will read it.
Yes.
Who are your audience?
Yeah, I agree. I think the dangers that we forget is that screenshots are the death of many reputations. So that's another thing that we fear is also, a digital cyber security kind of awareness that we should be looking at. Now that we've covered digital identity and sort of social media presence, I wanted to go into the next thing on technology. And how safe is it? Because we need it. Like earlier, before this particular session began, I actually had several issues with internet. Also, Wi-Fi connections. How safe is it to be sharing Wi-Fi? We are getting bored from working from home. We're going and sitting in cafes. We're sitting in restaurants, outdoor sitting, obviously safely. Is it safe to be connecting to just random Wi-Fis? Is there something that we can do? Perhaps you can come in here about sharing Wi-Fis.
Is it me or Kira?
Yes,
me.
yes, Nadia.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, I was waiting. All right. This one strikes to me as well. Sometimes, when you have a different, operating system on your laptop, it will automatically ask you, are you on public? Are you at home? Are you at office? Because if you're at public, I think what you do is shared also with the people in that connected thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you can do is try to install the best firewall or the best antivirus that you can find on the internet and install it on your computer. Because even if you think that you are safe without the antivirus, without the firewall, I think a lot of advanced hackers or advanced people online, they will try to find things to take your personal information. So it's really important for us to cover ourselves with that kind of security. Yeah.
No, I agree with that. I love how you're saying get the best antivirus protection. I feel like we're talking about vaccines. It'll give you a bit of a firewall, but it's not 100%, but it gives you protection. Thank you for that, Nandia. I'd like to go back to Kieran because I wanted to ask about because this leads to protecting your data, because if a hacker goes through your Wi-Fi, it can go and affect data, which can cause data breaches. So Kieran, as working in an institution, there must be some concerns over protecting data. How are you going about that in an institution with a large number of students as well?
Yeah, it's a real challenge at the moment, and it's taken up quite a bit of our energy in terms of making sure that we are being responsible with the information that people, parents and families are trusting us with. And obviously in this area as well, there's been more sort of litigation, and not litigation, but, rulemaking and laws, and especially GDPR. And I know that Indonesia has their own versions of GDPR, which align very closely, that are coming into place as well. So yeah, we're putting into place all the permissions, making sure that we have permission to have certain data as well. On a sort of technical side, we stress test basically, and we rely on third-party providers for our data management. We have cloud storage, so obviously that's not campus. We also have on-campus storage, which we have to protect and make sure it's fire safe and all that kind of thing, and backup as well as the cloud storage we're using as our main. And we get third-party providers to come in and stress test our systems. We had an audit last year where they tested all the different systems that do hold data about our community. and how secure they were. But almost the biggest thing to work on is education. And I would say that as a teacher, but the main breaches come from somebody's behavior. So like Nandi was saying earlier, don't open that file that looks suspicious. Don't download that email. If you're getting something from somebody you don't recognize and it's asking, it looks out of sync, doesn't look right, don't do it yet. Find out whether this is something you should be doing. And also the physical breaches. So, we all have devices, we carry them around with us, we take them home, we have them on public transport, maybe they're in our pocket. So make sure that you have security on them, which means that nobody can just open it up and access whatever's in there. Because again, if you leave your laptop around and someone can just open it up and it's logged in, then that's one of the biggest ways people get into our system. So yeah, education is a big point. Obviously, we cover the technology side of things, but education is where we make the biggest difference, I think.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for that. I think it's very important, especially for our viewers today, if you are a company or institution or even individual that works, with a lot of other people. I think it's really important to make sure that you are very protected in terms of your devices. Some people even mentioned that, having VPN is helpful as well when you are connecting to public Wi-Fi's, right? So I just want to recap a little bit about what we spoke about just now. We covered digital identity and how important it is to be self-aware of what you post and how you want to be viewed online, because that sticks with you for a very long time. Your digital presence, or what we'd like to call, Kieran earlier mentioned, digital tattoo, because it's not easy to get it removed, right? And also how it is still possible to have a sense of freedom on your social media and still empower through your content as well, which is really essential when you're using a platform that can really be viewed by the general public. And in Indonesia, when we're talking about data protection, we're looking, I myself work for the UK government, which means that we do abide and have to be compliant with the GDPR, or what we like to say, the General Data Protection Regulation, which protects data, various activities and various industries, meaning that they have to comply with GDPR. For example, if you are taking registrations, and for when you register for this session, for example, how do we keep those data? How long do we keep it for? And who has access to those data? Those are the things that you need to break down when you are collecting data. I'm sure every one of you who do work in various industries come across collecting data. It's as simple as, hi, do you know a person who can help me with design, for example? And person, Kieran would be like, oh yes, I know Nandia. Let me give you Nandia's number. But he didn't ask Nandia. So there's no consent of sharing data, which means that is almost like the simplest data breach you can say, because you're giving away somebody else's information. So I hope that summarizes just a little bit. Maybe Kieran or Nandia would like to add a little bit here.
Yeah, Nandia? I think that's very true. The one,
or did I do a good job?
you did really great, by the way. You did really great, but I want to add something on it. Like, for instance, we talked about screenshots and how, it's a pile of death, or how you call it. But sometimes when you share a screenshot, you forget to like blur the image, or you blur the phone numbers. Yes, or you crop respectfully, please. When you share a screenshot, you don't have to like crop everything, but you can like blur it out, like blur the picture or blur the phone number, because it's also not asking consent from the person that you screenshot.
Yes. So that's my next topic that I like to talk about, consent. I think consent is such a big part of just personal security as well. Like when you're taking photos outside, when you're taking videos outside, and then somebody else is behind you, doesn't mean that they want to be part of your, selfie Insta story, or you'd like to take a view of the location. It doesn't mean that you need to have their faces on it. And that's something we don't consider. I find myself very uncomfortable when I'm in a restaurant and it has a very Instagrammable background and somebody in front of me at another table takes a video of the place, but I know that I'm in that video. So I would find myself going like this, just to make sure that I'm not part of their video. What about you, Nadia and Kieran? Of course, maybe Nadia first. What is your take on consent, especially when it comes to being digitally present?
My consent in being digitally present.
Just in general about consent of being on social media or somebody taking your photos, just a general overview of consent.
I think general overview of consent for me is more like I'm more of an introverted kind of person, so maybe this will be a little bit biased from my end. Like when someone's taking picture of something, they really need to think that whether this person wants to be in there or not. Like for instance, like you went to the Instagrammable cafe and then somebody's take video and you didn't want to. Like when we take pictures, we need to make sure that there's no one in the picture that will say back at you. Like, how do we say it? How do you phrase it? Like,
but is it okay? Is it like, for example, sorry to cut you. Is it okay if I know somebody's taking a video and I feel like I'm in it? Can I say, I'm sorry, can I just make sure that I'm not in the video because I don't consent to it? Is that something normal? Is that okay? Do you think?
Maybe for me, it's normal because I would definitely do that. Like when someone's taking a heavy video, like for a long time, maybe like they're vlogging or something, it's really something that it's a new kind of set of skills that you need to like do. It's something that we need to imbue in ourselves. Like it's okay to say no. It's okay to like, this is me. Yes, it's okay to confront because we never know where that video would end up. Right. And, I don't know if Kieran or Oki or anybody here noticed lately there's a technology where you can just take a picture and then you put someone's face on it and the body moves, something like that. It's a really crazy, like how technology,
right?
Yeah. That's why you would never know where this picture or where this video will end up. So it's really okay to say no.
Thank you. So I think it's now really good to make that a normality. And yes, I think we had a comment earlier from Jade Rory. Unfortunately, that's how it is in Jakarta. Yes, I do agree that people tend to just take without thinking that other people want to be in it or not want to be in it, right? So how about you, Kieran? How does consent kind of play in your world, in your role?
Yeah, it's an important area for us to think about because, of course, we are acting as custodians of other people's children, and so we have to be really aware of this. In the olden days, pre-COVID, when we used to go on residentials and trips and things like that, before we go, we always have a meeting with the staff and we discuss what the trip and child protection and things like that. And one of the things we always had to say was, the general public is not allowed to take images of our children. Like, if we see it happen, then it's our responsibility as staff to go and speak to those people. And we've done this. We do it most trips because, our children are all in their batik uniform. They all look kind of cute. They're walking around and having a nice time. People think, oh, that's nice. Look at that. And their intention in general, I'm pretty sure their intention is perfectly innocent. They just think it's a nice thing and they want to remember it. And then when we go up and we say, excuse me, please, can you delete that footage? And they're very apologetic usually, and they understand. So I think we do need to have upstanders who are saying, look, this is not appropriate behavior, and just gently and politely challenge them, and it will become more of a norm. And one of the things that we do talk to our children about is disobedience, and when is it appropriate to be disobedient. And if someone is asking you to do something and it doesn't feel right to you, then you can be disobedient. Even if they're an adult or something like that, you can, intelligently be disobedient. And maybe there's social pressures here that you don't want to be the one person who walks up to somebody and says, oh, stop taking video of this scene. You don't want to be the spoil sport, but actually it's the appropriate thing to do. In terms of us as an educational institution as well, we have a core business. Our core business, of course, is learning. And so we have agreement from the parents built into our home usage agreement that we can take footage or pictures of learning activities that are happening, all as part of learning. And if it's part of our core business, then we have that consent. But any other time, people are lending us their information or their image, and we need to treat it respectfully, I think.
Great, thank you, Kieran, for sharing that. I think it's really important, especially if I, in the future, if I want to become a parent and have kids, and I obviously want to know that my child is protected, fully protected in that institution itself. I mean, it's not only in schools, but I think in offices, HRs play a really big role in protecting their employees as well. So this is something to be really considerate about that maybe have not been amplified or have not been discussed in workplaces. Again, it's about being inclusive and making sure that not only the higher up or the lower, the people that are in charge of particular activities like marketing and comms get protected in that area, but everybody should be protected and everybody should be able to give consent on anything that involves them. So thank you. That was really great. And Nandia, I want to go back to you and ask you a little bit about maybe before we go into our Q&A sessions, which I'm sure a lot of you must have some questions, burning questions, even if it's not related to any of the topics we spoke about earlier. We're very happy to open a new topic. So please write in your question. I know there's a question coming on here, but before I go to that first question, I want to ask Nadia, through all your campaigning and through all your training of, cyber hygiene and internet, navigating the internet safely, what are some things that you might want to share today to everyone here that maybe we have not discussed?
I think I really want to share something unless maybe students here. Are there students here today?
We're all students. I'm still learning.
Okay, we're all students. Okay, students of all ages.
Is still a student.
All right, my students. Okay, maybe some things that were not touched is cyberbullying. Maybe it's really close to the digital identity, digital footprint, and the things that stays online. Yeah. I really want to share, there are many things that we can do to protect ourselves from having a bad experience online. Because I'm pretty sure, from our Napster, Friendster, MSN Messenger times, we all experience things like this. Okay,
so I have to say before you go into it, cyberbullying is definitely not only for students, but adults suffer them too. And I feel that it's even more detrimental, I think, for adults because we're working, this is our career path or whatnot. So I think this is a great topic. Thank you for highlighting. Go ahead.
You're welcome. Okay. It's important for us to use our common sense, just like what Kieran said. When you see someone online, it doesn't mean that they are nice. Just because they use maybe a cute picture or a pet picture doesn't mean that they are humble. Doesn't mean that they are harmless. So it's important for us to see if they send you a friend request, maybe on Facebook, or follower request on Instagram. It's okay for you to ignore, even though they DM you, they message you, they say that they know you from somewhere. It's important for us to see, because now we can see who is in common, who have friends in common, and who follows who from our followers. And it is our right to decline, and it's also our responsibility to take care of ourselves by overlooking who we're sharing our information to. So that's important. The next one is, it's really hard, I know, but never ever post personal details online, or personal I'm fighting with my boyfriend. You place a video of you online. It's really important to have boundaries on what you share, especially if you know that the information will be seen by a large number of people like me. Excuse me. On Instagram, you might have a private account, or you might have a public account. A public account is more risky when I'm talking here, because whatever you post, including your personal information, your house address, or I don't know, maybe you're taking selfies or of your wallet, and they will see your credit card or something like that. Or where you're going, it's really like dangerous for you to put online. And last but not least is, if you see this person is commenting unkindly on social media, walk away. Do not interact with unkind people or unfriendly people. You can maybe unfollow or block them, because the more you interact with them, the more like you're feeding to the fumes, something like that. One thing to take out, one thing that I want to like highlight is, be clear about how you want to interact online, how much you want to spend time on the internet, how much part of your real life you want to share online, and how many people do you want to share private online with.
Thank you so much. Those are very great reminders. And we have a number of questions, which I'm always excited about. And I just want to highlight and recap from your point earlier, Nandia, about posting and about allowing people to view and witness what you share is also important. Sometimes we forget it's not always about the number of followers, right? Yep. And I myself have gone public on my account, but for good reasons, because of the objective of my account. So I think it's not my personal life, it's more about motivating others, right? So that's my focus, but other people might be sharing a little too much, which I have seen. And sometimes as a friend, you'd want to tell them and you don't want to be rude, but I think it's be good to remind others as well. And you have that place to remind others, like maybe you shouldn't post that for your own safety. So thank you for that. And having boundaries, I think in life in general is already difficult. So having boundaries online is perhaps a start. And so I hope that's a good reminder for everyone. Thank you, Nandia. So stand by, we're going to go into Q&A. I'm going to go back to Kieran before we head on to Q&A, whether Kieran has some more insights that you'd like to share to all of us before we head off to the one-on-one Q&A session. Kieran?
Yeah, just following on from some of the things that Nandia was saying there, and we might get into parental roles as well. But in terms of things going wrong online for our students, a lot of the times it's between students, peer on peer, trouble. And I guess it's basically social media or online life is able to amplify all the things that always have happened. Whether it's what you would term bullying. Previously, what might happen in the playground, you would go home and you would be away from it because that person is no longer in your physical space. And you knew when you were not in that physical space with them, you were safe from them. But of course, it's pervasive now. Wherever you have your device, these people, if they're not doing very nice things, can get to you. And so in terms of how do we talk to our students and how do they remove themselves from those situations to get a break, to get a rest, to make sure that they're disconnected at times for their own mental health, for their own well-being, and for their own physical health as well. Because if you're just glued in one place, looking at a screen, it's not good for you in here, and it's not good for the rest of your body either. So maybe those are some things we can touch on in a bit as well.
Yes, thank you. That was my next question for both of you. How can we detox from social media better? Because sometimes people go, okay, guys, I'm going to be offline for a few days. It's like, you don't have to tell people, right? But there are a few questions. So I'm going to go straight into our Q&A. Thank you, everyone who has been putting their questions on the chat. I'm going to start with Rita. So Rita has a question from Nandia. What have been YCAP's initiative towards digital literacy in Indonesia, and how have you been doing that? So Nandia, this might stray a little bit about to digital literacy topic, but perhaps it plays a role in highlighting digital cybersecurity in any of your initiatives. Do you want to go in?
Okay. Hi, Rita. Nice to meet you. I'm trying to put this as simple as it can be. So for YCAP Foundation, for digital literacy, we we want to support Indonesia to enter Industry 4.0. So YCAP Foundation believes that education is the key. We want the education to still be updated, no matter we're entering the pandemic, we have to shift. We want to make sure that the kids we cater stays relevant. So other than having the resiliency through the pandemic, we need to make them more aware about digital. Of course, there is risk, but there's also potential in being digital, right? So it is our duty, YCAP Foundation, to make the content more engaging or to make the trainings more fruitful. So yeah, what we do now is we partner with different partners like Facebook, for instance. We've been having projects together for a few years. So we go to schools in different areas in Indonesia to teach about digital literacy. And we also, for our internal, we equip our kids, we equip our children to be better at coping with what 21st century skills or 21st century jobs wants. Things like that. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you for that.
So
Great
much.
question.
Yes, Rita, speaking of digital literacy initiative, the UK Indonesia Tech also does a lot of programs on that. So you guys can follow our Instagram, which is on my background at UK Indonesia Tech Hub. Not only digital literacy for existing startup players, but also for marginalized communities. I think that's very important. So we work with people with disabilities. We also work with marginalized women in locations that do not have technology access. And micro, small, medium enterprises as well. So a lot of work there on digital literacy. I think everyone's playing a role, especially institutions like British School of Jakarta, continuously educating students on how to better navigate technology, not only for now in education, but I think the future as well. All right, next question. We have a question for Kieran. So from Clara Bella. During the pandemic, it is very difficult to control student learning. What are the tips and tricks as teachers and curriculum developers, especially regarding the topic of digital literacy or digital citizenship? What is the role, and also what is the role of parents in supporting this? Karen, you want to come in here?
Yeah, of course. Good grief. There's so much there. We could do a whole day on this, probably a week. Okay.
You have 2 minutes.
Okay. Right. Clara, thank you for the question. It's an interesting question. During the pandemic, yes, it has been a challenge. It all depends a lot on the context that you're working in. So what age are the children? What equipment do you have available to you? What kind of knowledge is in your parent body about how you want learning to happen? And what is normal practice in your school as well? And so you want to try and emulate some of those things, but you need to adapt them for the online environment. So you would need to, if you're with younger children, then you break down the tasks. They are short tasks. You have breaks. You have opportunities to move. Children need to move. You have opportunities for them to work together. So again, I don't know what platforms you're using, but if you have the opportunity to put students into groups using breakout rooms, I know Zoom has them and Google have them now. You can put the children into groups and get them to converse with each other. Controlling student learning, I'm a little bit uneasy about that language. I don't necessarily want to control the students' learning. I want to facilitate the learning, and I want to allow them to take control of their own learning, and I want them to want to take control of their own learning. And all of those things have got different nuances and different behaviors inside them as well. In terms of digital literacy or digital citizenship, well, for digital literacy, or at least in using the technology, it's a bit of a sink or swim kind of situation, isn't it? You have to learn how to use it. And so the easier you can make that for your students in terms of tutorials and things like that are going to help a lot. Digital citizenship, all those things we've been talking about. If you've been working with your community and your student body and your parent body for a number of years and building this resilience and building this knowledge base of knowing how to react to certain situations, having had those conversations with students and with parents, then they're much more likely to be able to take that online. Whereas if you're starting from a very low level and you've never had those conversations, then you're going to have to build up a lot more slowly. If you want to get in touch with me, we'll find some way of connecting, and I'd be happy to give you some more advice when I'd have more than 2 minutes. I don't know. Probably more than
All
2.
good, Karen. I was joking about 2 minutes, but you did very well. I think we're still here and paying attention. Nandia, you want to come in here perhaps also to add how can parents play a role in supporting the students' learning, which I think Karen will also like to add after this. Nandia. Did you hear me?
Yes, I can. So sorry, what the question again?
So the question was, when students are learning online, and how can parents help with students in your opinion, about supporting their position to learn online and staying safe online as well?
It's depending on how young your child is, really. Like, if your child is probably under teenager, maybe you can set like a parent account. I don't know if people are familiar about it, but on platforms, I think you can set like a parent account, and you will have your child account, and you can like see whatever your child is doing. I know it sounds really bad. Like, if I think myself, my parent will know what I would be doing, but that it's for their safety as well, especially if they're on a really critical age. Like,
no, I think sorry, go ahead.
It's okay, correct.
No, I was just saying how I agree. I think as a kid, as a child, especially when they're younger age, they're not equipped to make some decisions because they're not exposed to some experiences. And I think it's only fair that parents do take a sense of control in that environment, which it's a fair play. It's protection as well. Sorry, I'll come back to you, Nadia. You were going to say something.
It's okay. It's okay. I completely forgot what I was going to say, by the way, to be honest. But yeah, it's I think it's okay for parents to want to keep their children safe, because like, maybe if you are familiar with like games like Roblox, there were a few years back, I think, there were a lot of content that were not supposed to be there, but it was there, like in an online game where kids gather and meet. So it's really important not to say like, hey mom, I want to play this game, but you really have to know what kind of game they're playing, and who are the people that can connect to your child in that game or platform. It's really important. Yeah.
No, that I agree. Thank you for that. Karen, back to you. How can parents play a supporting role, and especially in online learning as well?
Yeah. So we talk with our parents quite regularly about things like this, and if you'll allow me, I just talk to you a little bit about some research that was done in the States, where they tracked different parenting styles in terms of technology and what the response in the children was. So they put these parents, they observed them and how they parented, and then they put them into 3 groups. And so you had a limiting group of parents who were very controlling over their children's use of technology, or maybe stopping them using it at all. And then you had an enabler group who basically let free rein. The kids could use technology whenever they wanted and do whatever they liked. And then you have a third group who were a mentor group. So these were parents who were using technology alongside their children and being with them while they were doing it and discussing what was happening. And they looked at the effects on the children from this, and they named the groups. So the limiters, they had digital exiles as children. So children who had no real understanding of the online world. They didn't feel part of it. They didn't really understand how it worked, and they weren't able to interact with it safely, effectively, or very knowledgeably. And so when they did get into it, when they got to a certain age and they were allowed, they weren't making effective use. They were quite vulnerable. They could be taken advantage of. And the enabler parents, the one who gave free rein to their kids, they named those children digital orphans. And they were children who had no one had ever been a parent for them in this space. They'd just been running wild through the streets of the internet, doing whatever they liked, getting themselves in all sorts of bother, quite streetwise, but causing a lot of problems and creating a lot of problems, and not behaving appropriately to other people because no one had ever taught them about it. And then the mentor parents, you can probably see where this is going. The mentor parents were the ones who've done a good job. They'd scaffolded their children's use of technology, and they called those children the digital heirs. So the ones who were comfortable in that environment, they were able to take advantage of the right things when it comes to digital technology, and they were able to spot the dangers and behave appropriately, and they were able to regulate their own behavior and their own use of technology as well. So if you're a parent out there, then my message to you is live in that space with your children and talk about what they're using, experience what they're using. I mean, I have to play Fortnite with my son every weekend because that's what he wants to do with me. And I am learning about that space, and we're having conversations about what is appropriate in that space. And so if you're a parent, be digitally together with your child, and it will make a world of difference for them.
Thank you. I really like that study. That was very insightful, actually. Very good comparisons, just stretch, but really good to visualize of how much involvement, how essential it is for parents to be involved, especially if it's a younger group of users. Great. Now I'm going to go and jump into another question. We do have about 15 minutes left of today's session. A question for all of you, both of you, I think. How can social media be used more effectively to bring people with mental health issues together and help them connect? I think this plays a really big role. And recently we've also celebrated World Mental Health Day. So this is perhaps, I'm just going to fish out individual opinions. And Nandia, how do you think we can use social media to better help and engage with, in terms of facing mental health issues in the world?
Okay. Mental health itself, sometimes when somebody hears about mental health, it's negative. But we can transform that into something positive and something more powerful. So we can try to use our social media instead of like, oh, I'm so tired. Oh, my mom is doing this. Oh, my boyfriend is treating me like this. Oh, my friend is treating me like this. Like, instead of like, sounds like complaining, instead of complaining on what you have, but you can transform your social media into something more powerful. Like, maybe you share your story in a positive way, or like be an example of others, like how I overcome this kind of thing during my gloomy days. Or maybe lead a healthy lifestyle, like to overcome my mental health, I run 45 minutes daily in the morning, maybe. Or like you share self-care tips, like how to like sit in the rain. Maybe, I don't know, when we were kids, our moms used to say like, don't run outside because you will get sick on the rain, but probably it's how you cope with your mental health. You can share that. Or encourage others to talk about mental health. There are a lot of hashtags on Facebook, on Instagram, anywhere. You can like share your story with others and, create a better awareness of mental health. Or probably when you see someone who is in need of help, because we cannot really control what we see online, right? Like maybe our friend posted and we will receive the information. We try to be supportive and not judgmental towards what they have or what they're experiencing. Or maybe use social media like this, like we meet up online with people who have mental health as well, or people who can help you on overcoming your mental health. Or last but not least, maybe it's the same with sharing your experience, sharing your story. You can create a blog or micro blog on Instagram about mental health, something like that. Hope that helps.
Thank you. Yeah, there are various ways of how we can do that. How about you, Kieran? Your personal opinion of how you think we can better use social media to spread the positivity of mental health issues and how one can face it and to understand better.
Yeah, I think I may have mentioned it before. I think social media is such an amplifier for what used to be normal life. So, growing up as a child, you would know your immediate family really well. You'd have people in the neighborhood that you know quite well, people at school, and maybe that was the kind of limit of the people that you knew in the world. And so if you were the goth in the village, you had to hope there was another goth in the village and you could connect and feel a sense of belonging with the only other person in your limited social field who felt the same way or had the same worldview as you do. Social media has blown that out of the water. you can connect with goths or whatever you're interested in from around the world. And so it's really positive because it allows people who don't feel like they belong where they are to find a community where they do belong. And I think that's really important for people's mental health and young people's mental health in particular. There is the flip side of that, where people who, want to do dangerous things can find other people who want to do dangerous things, and they can build their community as well. And so you've always had both of those things, but social media is such a catalyst and an amplifier for that, that we need to focus on the good things that it can do and how it can help. And I think all those tips there that Nandia gave were very pertinent and very good. I can't really add any extra tips on top, but just that idea that it has amplified everything so much, and that is both good, but has a little bit of danger element to it as well.
Yeah, thank you both of you for sharing those tips. I think it's really important to address that. Like Nandia mentioned, mental health is not a negative thing. I think it's something that allows us to be more self-aware and allows us to be more self-introspective as well. And so going into things like sharing online, how much you really share online, a question that I really like here coming from Jocelyn Elise. Thank you for that. I hope I said your name right. Are there any online anti-bullying tools for children or young people? If any, can you share your experience? Nandia, would you like to come in here?
Yeah, I think I can tap on. Hi, Jocelyn Ellis. Thank you. That's such a great question. Okay. Anti-bullying tools probably comes in the different platforms. So every platform has this feature. That's why we need to do as digital citizens. When we sign up for something, when we download something, we need to really learn how the app works and what are the features that are available in the platform. For instance, if you use Facebook or use Instagram, there are buttons that allow you to restrict who can comment, who can view your posts, who can automatically connect as your friend, or maybe report if you think that they're bullying you or they're like harassing you. Many of them involve simple steps to block, mute, or report. So I encourage you to like really explore what you install on your phone. Every single apps. It's also called stock-based digital. So like you really have to know what you sign up for. And then for bullying itself, I think my experience comes to when I was a kid, I guess. We can be the first line of defense to those people in need. So when you see cyberbullying, you can be their hero. Well, not hero, but you can try to save them. Think about where cyberbullying happens in your community and ways that you can help, like simple as raising your voice, like, hey, it's not okay to say that, or hey, it's not okay for you to post something like that. Maybe it's hard for us to step in, but I can assure you, when you do that, you will feel much relief that you actually help someone, even though it's only online. Simple act of kindness can go a long way.
I agree with that. I think that's something we forget. So that's a really good reminder. Thank you, Nandia. Karen, how about you? Bullying surely happens all around you. How do you mitigate that, and how kind of the platforms that you use, especially an institution like yours as well?
Yeah, I'm interested in the question. So you're asking about anti-bullying tools. With a tool, you're normally achieving something, making something. So I'm not sure if you want a tool, Jocelyn, at least that students can use or children can use when they're being bullied to try and protect themselves from being bullied, or is it that you want something that will allow children to learn about how to behave when there's bullying? So there's quite a few of the latter. The former are the things that have just been spoken about in terms of what you can do on platforms to protect yourself. But in school, we rely heavily on an organization called Common Sense Media. They're a not-for-profit in America, and they have a whole curriculum that we follow quite closely. that deals with all the different elements of digital citizenship in a progression. So it starts with things that are appropriate for young children, all the way up to our students who are about to leave for university. And in there's lots of resources and things. If you're an educator, you can join that site as an educator and you have access to those lessons. And that's a really good tool as an educator where you can help students learn about digital citizenship. It also has a parent element for parents out there, and they do a lot of reviews of applications, games, movies, books by other parents, so you can find out what's appropriate for your children. So that's very useful as well. A couple of things, other resources that are aimed at dealing with bullying online are often associated with different countries. So there is one called ChildNet, and there's another one like Think You Know as well. But sometimes they're based in Australia or in the UK, and they're tools that are aligned with the laws of that country. But they have lots of good resources that you can tap into if you're trying to support your own child who's feeling like they're being bullied, or you're an educator who wants to work with your young children.
Great. I hope everyone here got some great tips from that. Both Kieran and Nadia have shared earlier. I'm sure it's really difficult to always monitor and always catch the bad guy online. You can only virtually confront. But I do believe that Indonesia has been making a lot of progress as well in developing regulation towards handling cyberbullying and how it is an offense to basically cyberbully somebody and can result to some justice, right? So that's something to look forward to, definitely. And so we are going to close into with the last question. And this is going to go back to digital literacy. And this one is from Primarini Utami. YCAP is focusing to help marginalized community, and being digitally illiterate is still a big homework, even for the Indonesian government, for specific community. How can YCAP tackle this when you're trying to build their resilience and build connection during the pandemic?
Yeah. Thank you, Primarini, for the great question. I'm going to answer that with the one that I explained earlier, that YCAP is actually collaborating with Facebook and other kind of parties for digital literacy program. We have this kind of enhancement program. So it's like the first one is online, like Think Before You Share is a digital literacy skills like training program, equipping beneficiaries with critical thinkings and empathy in the online world. So this program has been running for a few years. The first program is like a mass campaign. The second year, it was like we do road shows to school to teach about digital literacy. So our role as a foundation is we also like cater the needs of these marginalized communities. And then other than going to road shows, on the third year, we go to schools, we invite teachers, we talk to teachers, because we try to make our program as sustainable as it can be. So we think that teachers will be the foundation of the education. So when we educate teachers, we will educate like more teachers, and we will also educate students, which also ripples to parents. So that's how it is. We have different programs for different needs. And currently we have Asa Digital. It's an interactive online training with 3 main activities so teacher training, student supervision, and focused group discussion for teachers and students. And this program covers things that we talk about today, like digital footprint, digital identity, citizenship, critical thinking, empathy, fake news, and even news verification. So we try to equip teachers and students as much as we can from our end.
Thank you for answering that, Nandia. So I hope that answers your question, Primarini. So that basically wraps up our session today on our first part of the digital citizenship on navigating safely through the digital world. So I really would like to thank 2 of our experts, Nandia as well as Kieran, and of course our partner with British School Jakarta. And I hope that you all have had a very insightful session today, and we would definitely love your feedback. I believe there will be a short feedback or 1 second, is in the chat here, a short link for 2 minutes just to answer a very quick survey that has been shared in the chat box. So please do give it a click and let us know what you think of today's session, what can we do better, and what you look for in the next session as well. So just to wrap up, I'm going to call on Kieran to give us a little bit of words of wisdom before we close the session, and then we're going to head to Nadia, and then we're going to say good day for the rest of the day today. Kieran, go ahead.
Oh, no pressure, hey? Words of I guess it's just be aware of how you're using things. If you're an adult on this space, just be aware how your behavior with technology is impacting the young people around you. You are, be a good model for them. Think about your own family and how you interact with them in real life. And is technology getting in the way of real relationships there? If you're an educator, how are you modeling good use of technology in terms of all those things to do with digital citizenship? Are you referencing your work and putting citations on your work properly and all that kind of thing, and modeling good behavior? And be aware of the things you're posting, how you're projecting yourself to the world, and mainly, people are looking up to you and observing you even when you don't know it. So it's worthwhile just having that moment to pause and think and make a good decision. I guess that would be my last words of wisdom. Make a good decision.
Making good decisions. That takes a lot of brain power and will. Thank you, Kieran, for the reminder. And Nadia, over to you before we say bye to everybody. Would you like to just say a few words?
Okay, a few words. Probably think before you share, think before you post. So before you post, you think about will I feel good or different about it later? And then why am I posting this? Would I say this in person in front of someone's face? And then am I being kind? Is it really private? Do I have permission? Or this is the bottom line, would I like me for being like this? Something to reflect.
Yes, basically, will I regret anything that I post?
Yes.
Simply put it as that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much once again, everyone who has joined us today. I really appreciate your time for being here and all of your questions, and especially Nadia and Kieran for giving us insights from two very different perspectives as an individual, institution, an employee, a freelancer, or just about anybody that uses the internet should find themselves be more self-aware. Everything you share is available for public. So just make sure that it does not come back to you in the future and bite you back. So all the best. And of course, I would like to see you in the next Tech Talk. And myself, Oki from the UK Indonesia Tech Hub, and of course, our team right here from British Columbia, Jakarta, who have put this together, and Nadia as our guest from YCAP Foundation. So see you soon, and